Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud, and we're going to have another What the Freud kind of episode. And this episode was inspired by some work that I was doing, and usually is inspired by work that I do. And so to bring you some of the insights that I come across and some of the ways that I think and work with people so that you can hopefully apply it to your life and understand what the Freud is going on. I decided to do a topic called the psycho child within and the demand for unconditional life. So let's start with the concept of arrested development. So I think most of you understand that when we are injured in our childhood, those childhood wounds that I talk about, like physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse and neglect, control, smothering, being raised by narcissistic, apathetic parents, that will definitely punch a hole in the soul and arrest your development. And I say your generically, anyone's development. And so when we are arrested in development, we have a stubborn, angry, or shut down, or crying, or acting out inner psychochild. And the psychochild wants to be accepted and loved and wants to heal from the childhood wounds by enacting the past and getting people involved to do things for them that will finally and once and for all prove that they are lovable and good enough and beautiful and the list goes on. So this is all the unconscious stuff. Now, how do we know that there's a psycho child within? The way I look at it is if there is a psycho child who is having their hand on the steering wheel and in control of life, what do you think life is going to bring them? Well, I could tell you right now, look at the mind map, which is very predictive, and you will see that, if you could, thank you so much. The wounds of childhood, which I just described, lead to reactions, the psycho reactions, the cracked lens of reactions. They encode into horrible core beliefs such as I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not competent, and on and on and on. And then just put the mind map up for another second. And look what happens when the psycho child is activated: chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So what does a psycho child sound like? Well, what does any child sound like? Very demanding, could sound very demanding, very pushy, very entitled, okay, very reactive, unable to grasp logic, lives in a world of psychologic, lives in a world of a cracked lens of perception on himself or life, one or the other or both. So this psycho child obviously isn't seeing straight and is reacting out of the place of the amygdala, which is our reactive brain center. And you can see how this will easily trigger off and create chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So what does the psycho child want? Well, what do children want? They want unconditional love. So children, for the most part, if you have a baby, the baby will get unconditional love. Baby poops in his or her pants and you don't say, well, I don't love you anymore, you're a lot of trouble. Unless you're a really, really messed up parent, you don't treat your baby that way. You just say, oh, how cute, you pooped in your pants, or maybe not so cute, but you don't stop loving your baby. Okay, so the concept of unconditional love is a very interesting one to me because it's used all the time. Oh, you have to be unconditionally loving in a relationship. Really? You mean you get to poop in the bed and say, how come you don't love me? Or you get to not flush the toilet bowl and say, how come you're annoyed by me? How you get to be late for you're consistently rudely late to your get-togethers with your significant other, and it will be okay? Do you get to say whatever you want to say or do whatever you want to do? Isn't that an absurd and dangerous, so to speak, contract? Really? Unconditional love means do whatever you like, and I will accept and love you anyway. What a horrible system. What a horrible system. And who's going to benefit? Really, nobody, because the person receiving unconditional love for crappy behavior is going to get what? We know, worse and worse and worse. And they're going to up the ante, and they're going to start stomping their little feet. Remember, what's her name? The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the little girl whose father was the millionaire who won the golden ticket. Veruca, I think is her name, stomping her feet unconditionally. I want a pony. I want this. You could hear the entitlement. So unconditional love demands from the psycho child within are a sad attempt at getting the unconditional love that was supposed to have happened in the first few years of life. And when that did not happen, the demand for unconditional love grew and grew and grew and replicated into all kinds of relationships. And the outcome of it is a sense of entitlement, a sense of not being able to see yourself through another person's eyes, being a burden to other people, acting out in ways that are actually unacceptable, and using the excuse of, well, if you really loved me unconditionally, you would accept me exactly for who I am. Well, I thought a relationship was a growth opportunity for two people. Yeah, you come into a relationship and you take on the person with the idea that the two of you are going to be a feedback loop to each other. You're going to grow. You're going to let each other know when you're stepping on each other's boundaries and toes. You're going to help each other evolve up the evolutionary scale of a relationship. And you're certainly not going to tolerate any sort of unconditionally demanding crap. I don't think that that's a worthy system. And if anybody thinks it is, you can call in. We could talk about it. And actually, I love call-ins. So if you like, do call in, and at the very least, ask questions in the chat room. I'll take them. I'd rather have the conversation. And you can call in 323-524-2599. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the system that I created, the mind map system for healing human disconnect, get my book from Amazon.com, Be the Cause, or if you want, you can get a free PDF copy of that. We'll give it to you. It's free. And then if you want to heal and you don't want to come to therapy, well, fine, then go look at my video, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. It's on my website, and you can take that journey all by yourself, or enroll the help of a psychologist or therapist to help you through this, and we'll get you through this. Because what you don't want to end up being is a stubborn brat demanding unconditional love under any circumstances. It might look cute when you're 3 months old, 6 months old, a year, or 2 years, and then you get into the terrible twos and you stomp your way to 2.5 or 3 years old. But it doesn't look too good when you're stomping and demanding and crying out for unconditional love when you're an adult. It just is not going to fly. So is there anybody out there who knows people who are unconditionally demanding their love no matter what their behavior is? Anybody out there want to call in, comment, and let's talk about that, because it's a big deal. Unconditional love sounds so beautiful, sounds so really, really heartwarming, but I don't really like it. I don't like the plan. I want conditional love. I want to know that I have to step up to a certain level, that I have to earn the right to have a relationship, that I have to earn the right to be somebody's friend, that I have to behave in certain ways and treat people in a manner in which they deserve to be treated. I like the model of earnership versus unconditional. Unless you're a little baby, then I love the idea of unconditional because that's what Dr. John Bowlby says, father of attachment theory. In order to have a healthy human psyche for the first few months and years of life, it is important that you have elements of unconditional love. Now, even a newborn, not I will say newborn because they're pretty reactive, okay? But a baby that's starting to develop, even they have conditions of behavior, like if they throw their food on the floor, mommy or daddy, primary caregiver, might say, no, 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 here, put it on the plate, eat it off the plate. You're not going to get any more if you don't eat it off the plate or use your spoon or something. And that's how learning occurs, is that we reward for certain behavior, certain treatment that we're shaping our children to have. Because if we don't shape them, then they're shapeless and they're out of control, and anything goes. And when anything goes, there's no structure, and all we have is chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And one of the best defenses of an arrested development person is a defense of the narcissistic wall, the demanding, the demeaning, the destroying, the discarding. Like, if you don't give me this or treat me like that, then I'm just going to throw you away. If you don't do as I say, then I'm going to demean and devalue and destroy you on every level, reputation included. So you can see that this is not a really bright system. Okay. And I really would like to hear from you. Is there anybody out there that has had put upon themselves the demand for unconditional love, and you look at that person and go, yuck, you're behaving in a disgusting way. I don't even like you, let alone love you. I don't want to give you unconditional love. You don't even deserve to be in my life. I'm sure you felt that way. I've certainly felt that way about people in my life. And hopefully, if you can't help elevate them to a level of participation and growth, then eventually you will probably not want to engage with them, and they'll eventually not be in your life. So that's how important it is. We have to reward behaviors and attitudes and conditions that are going to elevate other people. And if we give in to the screaming, hurt psycho child, who are we reinforcing really? I did a show, I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, called The Psychotherapeutic Enemy. So I'm the psychotherapeutic enemy of aspects of my patients that are saboteurs to their well-being. So the psycho child is certainly a saboteur, and the demand for unconditional love has to be addressed, because if it's not addressed, people have this fantasy that they have to be loved for exactly who they are. And who wants to love somebody who's not taking responsibility financially for the family, or taking responsibility for their health, or taking responsibility for meeting their commitments? Let's not kid ourselves. It's not lovable. And in order for us to be adult about this, we have to understand that there are conditions to engaging in relationships. Are there any questions in the chat room? Any comments? Maybe I can address some of those.
Yes, we do have one question.
Okay.
Isn't it possible to unconditionally love someone while still holding them accountable for their actions?
That's a great question. I love that question. You can unconditionally love them with the notion that you're trying to elevate them and improve their life. But if they're not going to participate and they keep breaking the relationship, after a while, you're feeding the beast. And after a while, you're going to be drained because, you know, the old saying, you can't continue to cast pearls on swine's ears. So you might want it for them, but somehow if they're not participating in elevating themselves, you know, but in the case of, let's say you're a parent and you've got a teenager and they're demanding, and you can unconditionally love that person with conditions. You can love that person. That's your child. You love that person. But if you don't make conditions as part of the relationship, you're going to have yourself a big, spoiled, narcissistic rat. Okay. And is that what you want? So the idea is yes, I love you. You're my child. However, because I love you, and here's the thing, because I love you, I will not allow for you to walk all over me. Because I love you, I will not allow you to sit there like a lump on the log and not do chores. Because I love you, I want you to be a functional human being. And I'm not doing you any favors by participating in your non growth. So I think people think that love is just be unconditionally loving. I don't think that's love because I think that's enabling. Hope that answers the question. And if you want to talk further about it, call in. Look, people have big hearts, especially toward their significant others, their family members, and their friends. Yes, you can love them unconditionally, but they're but however, you still have to um, make it so that they have to step up for the relationship, or where is the relationship? So then you can unconditionally love them from afar. Bye, I'm unconditionally loving you, but I certainly don't want to engage with you because you're a tantrumy, annoying, demanding, narcissistic person that I don't want to engage with, because when I do, I feel vampired and tired and put upon and unheard. And where's the relationship? Okay, so what is that? Another question. Boy, you guys like to ask questions in the chat room. Don't you want to talk to me? I promise you I will not embarrass you, and I'll leave it up to you to say what you want and not say what you want. But go ahead. What's the question?
The question is, what role do the parents play in creating these types? Is this common today?
I think it's very common today. Look at all the demanding, narcissistic children who say, "Mom, I am who I am. If I don't like to clean the room, it's none of your business." Well, it is your business, because who do you think is going to clean the room? What if cockroaches show up because they've left crumbs all over the room? We're interconnected. There's no such a thing as a family member that does not impact another family member. So, what I want to make sure again. Tell me the question again, please.
The question was, what role do the parents play in creating these types?
Spoiling them. That's the rule. Not making reasonable demands that are clear and are boundaried and foster the child's growth. What, you're just going to let your kid do whatever they want? Now we have a generation of kids that do whatever they want. Look at the crime rate, huh? That's kids doing whatever they want. Look at how they talk back to the parents. That's kids doing whatever they want. Look at the laws that are being broken, the road rage. That's kids doing whatever they want. Well, I want to do whatever I want, whatever I want. Well, what makes you think that a child is capable of making executive decisions over their life and being the cause of good outcomes for their life. Hopefully, they have mature parents that can guide them and set it up for them to succeed and reap the benefits of the reward of their evolution. So that's the result of the psycho kid. Could do whatever they want. They could drink, they could smoke, they can stay up as late as they want. They can basically rule their parents. They can make minced meat out of the parents. So now the parent feels completely incapacitated and out of control, does not have any executive functioning over the kid, and then chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. That is the end game. I hope that's making some sense to people. So going back to the psycho child within, all right, we know what it looks like in the DSM, where are we, DSM 5 or 6 manual, the borderline personality disorders and the narcissistic personality disorders. I'm not really great big on labels, but we could see that people who act out a lot, people who have a deep hole in the soul and act out a lot and make demands and take others as hostages to their situation and put other people in the position of making them do what they want to do, which is the demands. That is not the kind of relationship you want to enroll in. And that's not the kind of relationship you want to model to your children. So where does this come from? You know, I talk about the blueprint. I talk about parenting gone wrong. So when you have parents that are spoiling you, smothering you, if you have parents that are injuring you on some level and you don't trust them because their judgment is so bad, then it makes sense that you take over and do whatever you want, because certainly their lives are not turning out very well anyway. So what's the difference? So that's why going back to the first few years of life, you do need parents that are going to unconditionally be there for you and love you and eventually build boundaries into the relationship and hold you in a place in their world where you are important and lovable. These are essential ingredients of mental health. And when you do that, what happens is the child starts to grow. The child starts to eventually meet their own demands. The child starts to develop executive functioning, and then they don't have to resort to aggressive behaviors of demanding and demeaning and stomping their feet and acting out and acting in, which is another word for destroying themselves. Some demands are more passive aggressive. So some children will, let's say, go on a hunger strike unless the parent does whatever the child needs them to do. And these ways of manipulation get more and more intricate, and the parent starts to lose more and more power and executive functioning over their own child. And that is not really blueprinting a structure. There reminds me of a few styles of parenting. There is the authoritarian parent. That's like the Three Little Bears. The chair's too hard, much too strict, doesn't explain why they're putting rules in place, why they're putting those rules in place. Then there is the laissez-faire parent, do whatever you want. And then there's the authoritative parent who has rules and roles and regulations and checks in with the child and explains to the child why these rules are important. And that's the kind of setup you want for your child, because if you have authoritative parenting, you have structure. If you have authoritarian uh, parenting, you have control. If you have laissez-faire parenting, you've got nothing. You've just got a bunch of uh, do whatever you want. However, the authoritarian type of parenting might create a do whatever I want also, because they're going to rebel against unfair structure, unfair rules, unfair control. Okay, so again, I refer back to the system gone wrong. So we want to set up the best system possible. And again, it's not an unconditional one unless you're a baby. If you're a baby, give it to them unconditionally. They don't have the inner world developed yet. And that's how they develop the inner world, um, through you, and being unconditionally supportive and loving and nurturing and meeting many of their demands. However, also remember that as they grow and develop, they become more and more internally structured if they're developing correctly, and their impulse control gets better and better. And if you're just constantly unconditionally fulfilling their demand, they don't get to practice internal control, external control, and have a reality check on the world, because the world is not always going to give them exactly when they want it and how they want it. So it's good training for life not to be unconditional once children develop the capacity to understand rules and roles and conditions. Any other questions in the chat room?
Yes, there is. The question
Okay.
is, what role is social media playing in making kids less controllable by parents? The kids see others on TikTok being brats as a good thing.
They see kids on TikTok doing what?
Being brats, and they think
Yeah,
that's good.
I think it plays a huge role. Law of allowance. Now the TikTok is opening up a law, an allowance of talking that way, of being that way, role modeling that way. And so, speaking of unconditional, they're certainly giving the message that do whatever you want to do. Don't listen to your parents. And guess who's benefiting by that, by the way? So actually, those TikTok role models that are creating chaos in other people's lives have a goal, and that goal is to get what do they call it? Likes, hits, correct? Social media presence, and then they usually have something to sell. And if they don't have something to sell, that's fine too, because somebody who has something to sell will advertise on their channel just because they're gaining so much popularity. 1 million views, 2 million views, 5 million views. And the more outrageous and ridiculous that they could be, the more views, and the more cruel and disgusting they could be, the more views, because that's unusual. Let's watch this horror story. That's going to be very interesting, disgusting, traumatic, however interesting. And like anything, drama, trauma create more hits and likes and thumbs up and even thumbs down, which is still um, gleaning popularity. So remember, there's always somebody on the other end, and these TikTokers' mission is to gain their own popularity and take that, even at the expense of taking the child away from the parent and having them turn away from the parent and listen to their message, because their message is making them money. So it's a pretty disgusting system gone wrong. Okay, another question. Thanks.
Next question is, how does a person raised like that come to realize that they are causing chaos in their life and relationships?
Sometimes they don't, because they're so entitled. They think it's everybody else's fault but their own. And a lot of times they have to hit the wall by realizing that Other people are not buying in anymore. They're getting a divorce. The friends are leaving them. They're not flourishing in life. And so they have to crash and burn several times. Sometimes they go so deeply into their isms, like, for example, alcoholism or some kind of an ism that hurts them. And then they crash and burn that way. So sometimes you have to break down, and not always do you break through after a breakdown. However, when people come to see me, we work on the breakdowns to make sure they become learning lessons of life and they end up helping the person break through and not repeat the Freud pattern. So do call in. I'd love to hear from you and discuss your psycho inner child, the psycho inner child that ruins things, that sabotages your life. And of course, if you get somebody that will meet your demands, that's probably a people pleaser. So psycho children attract people pleasers who will meet their demands and comply with their unrealistic, unconditional expectations in the hopes that they will be loved. So you see, the people pleaser is not too healthy either, because the people pleaser wants to gain brownie points through being loved for pleasing. But the pleasing is making the other demander, the demander, psycho demander person, sicker and sicker and more in control of manipulating and controlling the other, and not having a real big psychological benefit to it at the end of the road anyway, because it all breaks down. The system is unsustainable. So I hope you're understanding that when we have childhood wounds, we arrest in development. When we arrest in development, we regress to the baby self, the demanding stage of development, which is a stage of entitlement. You know, you ever hear a 2-year-old child, me, I want my turn. It's all about me. I like it. Get away. It's mine. Okay. Everything is egocentric around the self. That's a stage of development. And some people don't grow out of that stage. And that's when you get that psycho child, the inner psycho child, acting up because they're still stuck in that stage of development, demanding for unconditional love to their horrific behavior. Because what they're really trying to do is they're really trying to prove to themselves that no matter what, they're lovable. And so that's what happened to the failed system in early childhood, where the child was supposed to be unconditionally loved, and the parents didn't fulfill that. And now they're children in an adult body, screaming and demanding and kicking and crying and all of that, trying to close the psychological file that was never completed back in the day when they should have been unconditionally loved by parents. And the more this happens, the more our world is going to break down, and the more unfair the world is going to be, and the more adult children, psycho-adult children, we're going to have walking the planet, including people pleasers who are participating in holding up the system gone wrong. So let's mind map what I just said, okay? So take out that mind map again so I can be clear with everybody. So the childhood wounds overshadow the development of the person. They stay babies even into adulthood. They react and demand and stomp and demean and devalue and destroy. And then when they are activated in their encoding of their negative core belief, if anybody dare insult them or say no to them, boom, 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 chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And the cycle starts all over again. And what they never come to unless they develop is panel 7, 8, 9. So if you look at panel number 7, you'll see um, the orbs coming together. So if you represent the blue orb and another person represents the yellow orb, and if both of you are balanced, you will have a synergistic relationship creating light. And when you have a synergistic relationship, you are not unconditional with each other. As a matter of fact, you have boundaries, which are conditions, and you respect those boundaries. And only then can you progress to panel number 8, which is the growth panel, the teamwork. Now you can be a team. You've got boundaries, you've got structure, you can help each other up the evolutionary ladder, you can grow, you can recode. Nobody's trying to step on anybody's fingers or toes. They're helping each other up the evolutionary ladder. And only through that can we have a world of unity. Only then. So you can understand how important it is to mind your mental health, to lift yourself out of arrested development, to manage the inner, angry, demanding psycho child, the saboteur, because at the end of the road, it's not good for anybody. It's not even good for the person demanding the unconditional love, because if the other person, let's say their partner, gives into it, they're actually being reinforced to do more of the same, which will break the relationship ultimately. And also that person will grow into resentment, and the person being reinforced for poor behavior will never own their own stuff because they'll always have a way to blame the other. So unless you're able to self-reflect and self-correct, no growth. There's just no growth in that. Any other questions in the chat room?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Does anybody want to call in? Any calls?
Not quite yet, but we're keeping an eye out.
Okay. So what's the question?
The question is, how do you know when it's time to give up on a relationship? How many chances do you give someone to change before moving on?
That's another great question. You know, when you're sexually addicted to somebody, it takes an awful lot to give the goodies up. When you're dependent on any level, it's really, really hard to let go. Also, if you are not healed, then you develop what I call the toxic bond. And so you're bonded to toxicity, and it's almost like withdrawing from heroin when you want to get away from them. So, like, how do you know when it's enough? When you can also feel it in your body. You could feel the futility. You could feel the psychosomatic stress creeping into your muscles and bones. You can feel the lack of ability to be taken in. You can sense the repetitive patterns in the relationship. In essence, you're going to really see no growth. You're going to get a lot of pushback. You're going to get a view of the person digging their heels in further to try to get what they want. If you're a people pleaser, you're going to try harder and harder, like a little hamster on the treadmill, harder and harder and harder and faster to please them. And then you're going to exhaust yourself. And sometimes that's what it takes, a total sense. I have people walking into my office and they are exhausted because they're not fighting with the correct person. If you're fighting with the correct person, that's not a bad thing. Like, hey, I don't like that. Really? You don't like it? No, I really don't. And if you don't stop doing that, then I don't think I could tolerate it. Well, okay, thank you for your truth. I really needed to hear that. And I guess I'm gonna have to choose between my way, which isn't even a good way, and the relationship. If somebody's not fighting for the relationship, then why are you fighting for the relationship? What's that about? That's about your own childhood wounds back in the day when nobody fought for the relationship with you and demanded and controlled and demeaned and I don't know, gave you no sense of boundaries and no sense of conditions. So then you're repeating it. But unlike the psycho child who's stomping his or her feet, you're just feeding and feeding. You're feeding the beast, you're feeding the dysfunction. So now you can say to yourself, wow, I'm part of this. I'm an active part of this system. And so now it's not up to the person to do something about it. It's up to me to stop being an active part of the system and pull back. And then you'll see what you've got. If the person starts to value the relationship and make some changes and set some rules and boundaries, okay, then you have something to work with. And if they're just going to continue the same old, and hope that you're going to bend bend more, comply more, forgive more, unconditionally love more, well, they got you. They really got you, and you're going to feel it. So this is serious business, folks, and people who are in an arrested development state, and that includes people pleasers too. Um, it's virtually impossible to forward your life and create synergistic relationships, which is the only kind of relationship that I think is worth having is when you're with a friend, a business associate, a relative, a significant other, or even your own adult children, anybody really, even people that you meet casually on the street. If you're having a conversation with them and they're not even looking at you in the eyes, well, what are you doing? Talking to them. Or if they turn away from you and they jump on their cell phone while you're trying to talk to them, well, why are you wasting your words? So, synergy. I'm a big fan of synergy, and I think that's the only type of worthy relationship to have. Because the alternative is to be vampired or be a vampire. So instead of panel 7, let's go back to panel 7, and in panel 7, the synergy creates a third entity, which I will call the we. It's the synergistic we. And if you don't have synergy, then one is taking from the other, and the other one is giving and giving to the black hole and being drained. And that will put out the light. So instead of all the light being generated, you can imagine panel 7 being devoid of light and turning into kind of like a black hole that you disappear into. And that's what a system gone wrong that is feeding on this will turn into a black hole, a black hole. So I hope you guys are seeing it and understanding it more clearly. And if you're acting like an arrested development child, then seek some help so that you don't have to act out and have unrealistic demands and have people pleasers meet those demands, people pleasers who will eventually resent you anyway, and people pleasers who, even if they continue, will continue to foster your non-growth. Okay, any other comments or questions or anything?
Nothing at the moment, but keeping a sharp eye out.
Okay, so I have a question for the audience. Um, okay, what do you, if you were to look at your life, could you self-reflect and see how you have been enabling those that have been acting out, have those that have been enabling the psycho child of your partner or your friend or anybody? Because isn't it true that we don't like to confront? Isn't it true that when people get more and more demanding, we want to just calm it down and say, don't worry, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. Have you ever seen people at a restaurant? And, I certainly have had this experience where a person that I'm dining with gets real obnoxious to the waiter. And I feel so bad for the waiter, because what's the waiter going to do? Say to them, you obnoxious person, I'm not going to serve you. Just get out of my face. Well, they can't do that. So they say, oh, what can I do to please you? Can I get you another cocktail? Can I get you an appetizer? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And the more they do that, the more they're feeding that other person's narcissism. It's really, really sad. And I have spoken up on behalf of waiters who have been ill treated because of demanding narcissistic psycho children who are also a little bit alcoholic and need that drink now and will lose it if they don't have that drink now. And I'll turn to the waiter and say, I'm so sorry. And then I might even turn to that obnoxious person if I'm still having dinner with the obnoxious person and say, that wasn't cool. That really wasn't cool. And encourage an apology or a bigger tip or something. Okay, comment, please. Go ahead.
One of our viewers says, a true relationship has mutual trust, respect, understanding, and effort.
That's what I'm trying to say. You said it well. Exactly. Exactly. And psycho children don't respect and they don't want mutuality because it's me, me, me. And I need, and I need. And again, it's coming out of pain. It's coming out of arrested development. It's coming out of unhealed childhood wounds where their needs were not met. It's just now that it's a little too late, it's a little too late to put those needs and demands on other adults when the parents should have met those needs way back then. Okay, what other comment is there?
The next comment says, I do whatever previous narcissists have asked for until I explode. Then the narcissist destroys me with narcissistic rage.
Exactly, because they're the little stomping, screaming kid, and you were the enabler, and they thought that they could get away with it because you fed the beast, you fed the psycho child, okay? And so the psycho child got overinflated, and that's what overinflated people do. It's like giving somebody an emotional credit card. You could do whatever you want, spend it any way you want. If you want to use me more, use me more. If you want to ignore me, ignore me. If you want to yell at me, yell at me. If you want to throw a temper tantrum, that's okay, because I unconditionally love you. Any other thoughts? Any comments?
No more comments, but nice bunch of people today.
Okay, so I hope it gets you thinking. And again, I say don't wait for them to become more psycho. You be the cause of stop feeding the psycho child, the psycho beast. Okay, and if they don't step up and get some help and become a responsible part of a synergistic relationship, don't waste your time. Okay, everyone. So thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to get my free copy of the book, Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect. And also you can go to my website, psychologicalhealingcenter.com, and view the introduction to my video, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And of course, all of you are welcome to reach out and consult and see what it is that I or my team can do to elevate you and stop the crazy what the Freud patterns and get the psycho child properly developed so that you don't act out and destroy yourself and those around you. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Good night.